December 20th, 1943. The sky over Germany. Franz Stiegler climbed through thin clouds at 8,000 feet hunting. His Messerschmitt Bf 109 responded to every touch like an extension of his body. 28 kills. One more and he'd earn the Knight's Cross. One more enemy aircraft and he'd join Germany's elite. Then he saw it, a B-17 Flying Fortress staggering through the air like a drunk. Flying impossibly low, alone, separated from its formation, easy prey. Franz pushed the throttle forward. His fighter surged ahead. As he closed the distance, details emerged that made his breath catch. The bomber's tail was nearly severed, hanging by twisted metal. The nose was shattered. Holes punctured the fuselage so large Franz could see through the aircraft from one side to the other. How was this thing still flying? Franz pulled alongside, positioning himself off the bomber's right wing, close enough to see inside, close enough to count the crew. Through the massive holes in the fuselage, he saw men moving. One lay motionless in a pool of frozen blood. Another stumbled, clutching his side. The waist gunner wasn't manning his weapon. He was trying to stop another man from bleeding out. Franz looked toward the cockpit. The pilot sat rigid at the controls, fighting to keep the crippled bomber airborne. Their eyes met through the shattered plexiglass. The American pilot was young, maybe 22, pale with shock, blood on his face, terror in his eyes, but he held his course, kept flying, refused to give up. Franz's finger rested on the trigger. One burst, 2 seconds of fire. The bomber would disintegrate. 10 men would die. And Franz would have his Knight's Cross. His commanding officer's voice echoed in his memory. Gustav Rödel, in the North African desert 2 years ago, gathering his pilots after a combat mission. If I ever see or hear of any of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself. Franz looked again at the shattered bomber, at the dying men inside, at the desperate crew trying to save each other. They weren't fighting anymore. They couldn't fight. Their guns hung silent, their ammunition spent. They were helpless. They were men in parachutes. Franz's finger moved away from the trigger. He pulled back on the stick, climbing above the bomber, circled once. The Americans probably thought he was positioning for an attack, setting up the killing shot. Instead, Franz descended again, pulled alongside the bomber's left wing this time, close enough that the American pilot could see him clearly, and Franz waved, not a salute, not a gesture of victory, just a wave, human to human, pilot to pilot. The American pilot stared at him, confusion replacing fear. Franz pointed ahead, pointed toward England, toward home, toward survival. Then he stayed on their wing and began to escort them to safety. 12 hours earlier, RAF Kimballton, England. Second Lieutenant Charlie Brown had woken at 0400 hours with his stomach in knots. His first mission as aircraft commander, his crew, his responsibility, his B-17. "Your old pub," they'd named her. B-17F, serial number 4231909. She'd been assigned to Charlie just 3 days ago. Still felt like someone else's aircraft. Still felt like he was borrowing something he hadn't earned. At the briefing, the intelligence officer pulled back the curtain covering the wall map. A collective groan rippled through the room. Bremen, Germany. The Focke-Wulf factory. Deep penetration, heavy flak. Swarms of German fighters. "Expected casualties," the officer said flatly, "are 30%. Charlie looked around the room. 30 crews. 9 of them wouldn't come back. He did the math. 90 men, 27 dead or captured by nightfall. He wondered which table would be empty at dinner. His co-pilot, Spencer Pinky Luke, leaned over. "First mission as commander, and they give us Bremen. Somebody up there hates you." Charlie tried to smile, failed. His hands were shaking. He shoved them in his pockets so nobody would see. The briefing continued. Weather, black positions, fighter tactics, survival procedures if shot down. Charlie absorbed maybe half of it. His mind kept circling back to one thought. I'm responsible. If anything goes wrong, it's on me. After the briefing, Charlie walked to Ye Old Pub. His crew was already there, running pre-flight checks. 10 men, 10 lives in his hands. His bombardier, Al Sadok, looked up. "You okay, Skipper? You look pale." "Fine," Charlie lied. "Just thinking." "Don't think too much," Sadok said. "Thinking gets you killed. Just fly the mission. Do what we trained for. We'll be fine." Charlie wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe training and skill and determination mattered, but he'd heard the stories. Good crews, experienced crews, shot down in flames, exploding in midair, spiraling into the North Sea. At Zolo 900 hours, they started engines. The roar of 4 Wright Cyclone radials shook the airframe. Charlie ran through his checklist. Everything green, everything ready. At 0945, the tower cleared them for takeoff. Charlie released the brakes. Ye Old Pub rolled down the runway, picking up speed. 50 miles per hour, 60, 70. The tail lifted. At 90 miles per hour, Charlie pulled back gently on the yoke. The bomber lifted into the air, Charlie's first takeoff as aircraft commander. Clean, smooth, perfect. "Nice flying, Skipper," Pinky said on the intercom. Charlie didn't respond. He was too busy climbing, watching the altimeter spin, counting the other bombers forming up around them. 29 flying fortresses. In a few hours, some of them would be gone. Just empty spaces in the formation, empty seats at dinner. He wondered if his would be one of them. At 10,000 feet, Charlie ordered the crew to test their guns. The bomber shuddered as 10 50 caliber machine guns opened fire in short bursts. Spent casings tumbled through the air behind them. "All guns operational," came the reports from each position. Charlie took a deep breath. They were ready as they'd ever be. He pointed Ye Olde Pub toward Germany, toward Bremen, toward whatever waited for them in the sky ahead, and he prayed they'd all come home. The German fighters hit them over the target. Charlie saw them first, small black dots against the winter sky, closing impossibly fast. His throat went dry. "Fighters! 12 o'clock high!" The dots became Focke-Wulf 190s, 8 of them, diving through the bomber formation like wolves through a flock of sheep. The sky erupted with gunfire. Tracers streaked in every direction. The smell of cordite filled the cockpit. "They're coming in!" His tail gunner, Sergeant Eckenrode, shouted over the intercom. "Engaging!" Charlie held the bomber steady, couldn't maneuver, had to maintain formation, had to trust his gunners. The FW-190s rolled through their defensive fire, cannons blazing. Shells punched through Ye Old Pub's thin aluminum skin. The bomber shuddered. Alarms screamed. "Engine 2's hit!" Pinky yelled. "Losing oil pressure!" Charlie feathered the engine, stopping the propeller before it tore itself apart. 3 engines left. They could make it on 3. Then the flak started. Bremen's anti-aircraft batteries opened up. Black clouds of explosive death bloomed around them. Shrapnel tore through wings and fuselage. Each burst sounded like rocks hitting a tin roof. Charlie flinched with every impact, but kept flying straight. Couldn't deviate. Had to hit the target. "Bomb bay doors open," Sadok called from the nose. "Approaching IP, 30 seconds. 30 seconds of flying straight and level through flak-and fighters. 30 seconds of being a target. Charlie's hands gripped the yoke so hard his knuckles went white. "Bombs away!" Ye Old Pub lurched upward as 4 tons of bombs dropped. Charlie banked hard left, trying to escape the flak zone, but the fighters were waiting. They came in waves, more FW-190s, Messerschmitts. They attacked from every angle. "Fighter, 9 o'clock! Coming in low!" "I can't traverse that fast." Cannon shells ripped through the bomber. Engine 4 exploded in flames. More alarms. More damage. Charlie struggled to control the aircraft as it yawed hard to the right. "Shutting down Engine 4!" Pinky shouted. He pulled the fire suppression lever. The flames died. But now they were down to 2 engines. 2 engines on a fully loaded bomber. "We're losing altitude!" Charlie fought the controls. The bomber was heavy, sluggish, falling. The formation pulled away above them. They were alone, exposed, helpless. Then it got worse. A fighter came straight at them from 12 o'clock, head-on attack, the most dangerous kind. Charlie saw the muzzle flashes from the Germans' cannons, saw the shells coming, couldn't do anything but watch. The nose of Ye Old Pub exploded, plexiglass shattered, metal shredded, wind roared through the cockpit. Charlie felt something hot spray across his face. Blood, his or someone else's, he didn't know. "Ecky's hit!" someone screamed. "The tail gunner's hit bad!" More fighters, more attacks. They came in pairs now, coordinated. Professional killers finishing off wounded prey. Shells tore through the waist section, through the radio room, through the wings. Charlie looked at his instruments. Half of them were dead. Airspeed indicator shattered, hydraulics gone, oxygen system failing, altitude dropping through 5,000 feet, 4,000, 3,000. The formation was gone. Bremen was behind them. They were alone over Germany, losing altitude, barely flying. And the fighters were coming in for the kill. Franz Stigler made his decision in the space between heartbeats. He wouldn't kill these men. Couldn't. They'd fought their battle. Lost. They deserved to go home. But saving them was another matter entirely. Franz positioned his Bf-109 close to the bomber's left wing, close enough that the American pilot could see him clearly, could see Franz wasn't attacking. The young pilot stared at him, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Franz pointed ahead, made an exaggerated gesture. "Fly straight. Stay on course." Then he pointed down. "Lower. Fly lower." The bomber was at 3,000 feet, easy prey for flak batteries. They needed to drop below 1,000, where the gunners couldn't track them. The American pilot hesitated. Franz could see the doubt, the fear. Was this a trap? A trick? Why would a German fighter help them? Franz waved again, more emphatically, pointed down. "Trust me." Slowly, painfully, the bomber began to descend. Franz descended with them. 800 feet, 600, 400, low enough that Franz could see German soldiers on the ground looking up, low enough that the bomber's shadow raced across frozen fields. Ahead, Franz saw the next problem, a flak battery, quad 88mm guns that would tear the bomber apart if they opened fire. He throttled forward, moving ahead of the bomber. As they approached the battery, Franz rocked his wings. The signal pilots used. Friendly aircraft, don't shoot. The flak guns tracked them but didn't fire. The German crews had seen Franz's markings, seen his signal. They held their fire, confused but obedient. The bomber passed over safely. Franz had just betrayed his own men, deceived them, tricked them into letting an enemy escape. If anyone reported this, if anyone investigated, he'd face a court-martial. The penalty was clear, execution. But he couldn't stop now. For 15 minutes, Franz escorted the shattered bomber across Germany, past flak batteries, past observation posts, past Wehrmacht units that could have radioed fighter command. Each time, Franz flew close to the bomber, visible, unmistakable. His presence said, "I'm escorting this aircraft. Don't interfere." And they didn't. Finally, the North Sea appeared ahead, grey water stretching to the horizon. The border between Germany and survival. Once they crossed, they'd be over water, British territory, safe. But Franz couldn't cross with them, couldn't go further. His fuel was low. He'd spent too much time at reduced throttle, matching the bomber's crawling speed. If he didn't turn back now, he'd never make it home. Franz pulled alongside one final time. The American pilot was looking at him. Their eyes met across the space between their aircraft. Two young men, two pilots, two enemies who'd become something else in the last 15 minutes. Franz raised his hand, placed it against his leather-flying helmet. A salute, not the Nazi salute, the old pilot's salute. Respect, recognition, safe journey. The American pilot hesitated. Then slowly he raised his hand, returned the salute. Franz rocked his wings, a final goodbye. Then he broke away, banking hard to the right. He climbed, gaining altitude, turning back toward Germany, back toward his base, back toward questions he didn't want to answer. He looked back once. The bomber was still flying, still heading west, still alive. Franz never saw it again. He landed at his airfield near Bremen, shut down his engine, sat in the cockpit for a long moment, hands shaking. What had he done? He'd let 10 enemies escape, committed treason, risked execution, but he couldn't make himself regret it. That night, Franz said nothing to his squadron mates, nothing to his commanding officer. He filled out his flight report with vague details. Engaged enemy bomber, no kill claimed. Mechanical issues forced return to base. Nobody questioned it. Nobody investigated. The war was chaos. One unclaimed kill didn't matter. Franz kept the secret for the next 47 years. Charlie Brown made it back to England. Barely. The bomber was dying, fuel leaking, hydraulics gone, one engine sputtering. He flew on instinct and prayer, holding the yoke in a death grip. RAF seething appeared through the clouds. Charlie had never seen anything more beautiful. He called the tower. "This is Ye Olde Pub. Emergency landing. Wounded aboard. Request priority." Cleared to land pub. Fire crews standing by. No hydraulics meant no brakes, no flaps, just a controlled crash. Charlie brought her in fast, the wheels touching with a shriek of tortured rubber. The bomber rolled and rolled, finally stopping at the end of the runway. Safe. Home. Alive. Medical crews swarmed the aircraft. They pulled Ecky's body from the tail, carried the wounded on stretchers. Charlie climbed out on shaking legs and stared at his bomber. The damage was incomprehensible. How had she stayed in the air? How had they survived? Ground crews gathered, counting the holes. 280 impacts. Missing tail section, destroyed nose, shattered engines. One crew chief looked at Charlie and said quietly, "Son, you should be dead." Charlie knew he should be dead. They all should be dead. At debriefing, Charlie told the intelligence officers everything. The fighters, the flak, the damage, and then he told them about the German pilot, the Bf-109 that didn't shoot, that escorted them to safety, that saluted and let them go. The room went silent. The senior intelligence officer leaned forward. "Lieutenant Brown, this incident, it cannot be discussed. Not with your crew, not with other pilots, not with anyone. Do you understand?" "But, sir." "That's an order, Lieutenant. If word spreads that German pilots can show mercy, it creates dangerous sentiment. We need our men believing the enemy is ruthless, inhuman, capable of only one thing, killing. This story stays buried." Charlie wanted to protest, wanted to argue, but he was exhausted, traumatized. He nodded. Good. Dismissed. Charlie left debriefing with a weight in his chest. The German pilot had saved his life, saved 10 lives, and Charlie couldn't even thank him, couldn't acknowledge it, couldn't tell anyone what happened. Ye Old Pub never flew again. Too damaged. She was stripped for parts and scrapped. Charlie was assigned a new bomber, flew more missions, completed his tour, came home in 1944. He got married, had children, went to college, rejoined the Air Force, served 20 years, retired, built a life. But he never forgot. Every year on December 20th, Charlie would think about that day, about the German pilot who appeared when they were helpless. Who chose mercy over murder? Who gave them a second chance at life? Who was he? What was his name? Did he survive the war? The questions haunted Charlie. Sometimes he'd wake from nightmares, not of the battle, but of that moment when their eyes met. German and American, enemy and enemy. And something passed between them that transcended the war. For 40 years, Charlie carried those questions, told no one, searched for no one. The order had been clear, never speak of this again. But in 1986, everything changed. Charlie attended a reunion in Boston. Old pilots swapping old stories. Someone asked if he had any memorable missions. And Charlie, after 43 years of silence, finally told the truth. The story of the German pilot who saved his life, and decided he needed to find him. The search began with almost nothing. A memory, a profile of an aircraft, the vague outline of a German fighter pilot who'd broken every rule of war. Charlie sat in his Florida home, staring at a blank piece of paper. How do you find a man when you don't know his name, his squadron, whether he even survived? His wife, Jackie, brought him coffee. You really think you can find him after all this time? I have to try. Charlie's voice was quiet, determined. He gave me my life back, gave me you, our kids, everything. I need to know who he was. Charlie started writing letters to the German Bundeswehr, to veteran organizations, to historians. Every letter said the same thing. I'm looking for a German fighter pilot, December 20th, 1943, near Bremen, flew a Bf-109, spared an American bomber. Most went unanswered. Some responses were polite dismissals. Too many pilots, too little information, impossible to identify. But Charlie didn't quit. He contacted a newsletter, Jägerblatt, a publication for former Luftwaffe fighter pilots. He wrote his story carefully, including every detail he could remember. The date, the location, the type of fighter, the escort to the coast. The editor agreed to publish it. A small notice, a few paragraphs, a long shot. Dear pilots of the Jagdwaffe, the letter began, I am trying to find the German pilot who saved my life in December 1943. I was flying a B-17 that had been severely damaged over Bremen. A German fighter pilot pulled alongside, chose not to shoot, and escorted us to the North Sea. If you were this pilot or know who was, please contact me. Charlie included his address, mailed the letter, and waited. Weeks passed. Nothing. Charlie began to lose hope. Maybe the pilot had died in the war. Maybe he wanted to forget. Maybe he'd never see the newsletter. Then, 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived from Canada. German stamps, neat handwriting. Charlie's hands shook as he opened it. Dear Charles, the letter began, I read your story in Jägerblatt. I believe I am the pilot you are looking for. Charlie stopped breathing. The letter continued. December 20th, 1943. My Messerschmitt Bf-109. Your B-17 was damaged beyond comprehension. I could not shoot. You were helpless. I thought of my commanding officer's words. I escorted you to the North Sea. I saluted. You returned my salute I never forgot. The letter was signed. Franz Stigler. Charlie read it 3 times. 4. His eyes blurred with tears. Jackie found him sitting at the kitchen table, the letter clutched in both hands. Is it him? Charlie nodded, unable to speak. After 43 years, Jackie whispered, You found him. No, Charlie said quietly. He found me. Charlie immediately wrote back. His letter was longer, emotional, grateful. You saved my life. My crew's lives, I've wanted to thank you for 43 years. Please, can we meet? Franz's response came quickly. Yes, I would like that very much. They arranged a meeting. January 1990. Miami, Florida. Neutral ground, safe territory. A hotel lobby where 2 old enemies could become 2 old friends. Charlie couldn't sleep the night before. His mind raced with questions. What would Franz look like? Would they recognize each other? What do you say to a man who chose mercy when war demanded murder? The morning arrived. Charlie dressed carefully. Jackie drove him to the hotel. His heart hammered as they walked through the lobby doors, and there, standing by the entrance, was an elderly man with silver hair and blue eyes, Franz Stigler, unmistakable. The same eyes that had met Charlie's through shattered plexiglass 47 years ago. Their eyes locked. Recognition flashed, and Franz smiled. Charlie crossed the lobby in a daze. 47 years collapsed into seconds. The old man extended his hand. Charlie took it. They stood there, gripping hands, neither speaking. What words could capture this moment? Charlie, Franz said finally. His English carried a thick German accent but was clear, strong. I would know your eyes anywhere. Franz, Charlie's voice broke. I never thought I'd find you. And I never thought you would try. Franz's smile was warm, genuine. But I am grateful you did. They moved to a quiet corner, sat across from each other. For a long moment, they simply stared. 2 old pilots, 2 old warriors, Two men who shared a secret that had defined both their lives. "Tell me," Charlie said. "Why? Why did you spare us?" Franz leaned back. His eyes grew distant. "You want the truth? I've wanted it for 47 years. Franz nodded slowly. "When I pulled alongside your bomber, I saw death. Your aircraft was destroyed. Your crew was dying. You had no ammunition, no defense, no hope. And I thought of something my commanding officer told me. Gustav Rödel, in North Africa." He paused, the memory still sharp after decades. He said, "If I ever see or hear of any of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself." I looked at your bomber, at your crew, and I realized you were men in parachutes. Still in the air, yes, but helpless, unable to fight, and I could not shoot. Charlie felt tears on his face, didn't bother wiping them away. "You committed treason. You risked execution. Why?" "Because," Franz said quietly, "I am a fighter pilot, not a murderer. There is honor in combat between equals. There is no honor in killing helpless men. That day, you were not my enemy. You were simply men trying to survive, like me. But you didn't report it, didn't tell anyone." Franz's expression darkened. "How could I? I had betrayed my orders. Betrayed my country, some would say. If I had been discovered, I would have been executed. So I stayed silent, carried the secret, and for 47 years I wondered if you made it home, if you survived the landing. If my choice meant anything, it meant everything," Charlie said. His voice was fierce now. "You gave me my life, my family, my future. Everything I have, I owe to you." Franz shook his head. "You owe me nothing. I did what was right, what was human. Any decent man would have done the same." "But they didn't," Charlie said. "Thousands of pilots, thousands of battles, and only you chose mercy." They talked for hours, comparing memories, filling in details. Franz described how he'd escorted them past flak batteries. Charlie described the landing at Seething, the horror of the ground crews seeing ye old pub's damage. "When I climbed out," Charlie said, "a crew chief told me I should be dead, and I knew he was right. There was no logical reason we survived. And then I realized, we survived because you let us." Franz was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Charlie, I have a confession. For 47 years I have felt guilt, not for sparing you, for lying to my commanders, for betraying my oath. I have wondered if I was a coward, if I failed my duty." "You weren't a coward," Charlie said firmly. "You were brave. Braver than any of us. You chose humanity over hatred. That's not cowardice, that's heroism." Franz looked at him, surprise in his eyes. "You truly believe that?" "I know it," Charlie said. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure the world knows it too." Franz smiled. A weight seemed to lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, my friend." "Friend," Charlie repeated. The word felt right. "Perfect. Yes, friends." They shook hands again. But this time, it wasn't a greeting. It was a bond, a promise. Two old enemies becoming brothers. The reunion in Miami was just the beginning. Charlie and Franz discovered they lived only a few miles apart. Franz in Vancouver, Charlie in Seattle, 4 hours by car, close enough to visit regularly. They became inseparable. Franz and his wife, Hia, visited Charlie and Jackie monthly. The four of them would sit in Charlie's living room, drinking coffee, sharing stories. Not just about the war, but about life. Children, grandchildren, the years that had passed. "Do you ever dream about it?" Charlie asked one afternoon. "December 20th? Franz nodded slowly. "Every year, every December. I see your bomber, see the damage, see your eyes, and I wonder what would have happened if I had pulled the trigger." "I dream about it too," Charlie admitted. "But in my dreams, you don't spare us. You shoot, and I wake up in a cold sweat, grateful it didn't happen that way." They were quiet for a moment. Then Franz said, "Charlie, I have something I need to tell you, something I never mentioned." Charlie waited. "That day, you were not just another bomber, you were my Knight's Cross. 28 kills. One more, and I would have earned Germany's highest honor. One more kill, and my career would have been made. Charlie stared. I didn't know. How could you? Franz smiled sadly. I chose your life over my glory, and I have never, not once, regretted it. Because what is glory compared to doing what is right? Charlie reached across the table, gripped Franz's hand. You got something better than a knight's cross. You got your soul. Franz's eyes glistened. Yes, I believe I did. Over the years, their friendship deepened. They appeared together at veteran events, told their story to schools, to documentaries, to journalists. Always together. Always unified. We are proof, Franz would say, that even in the darkest times humanity can survive. That mercy is not weakness. That enemies can become brothers. Charlie would add, Franz saved 10 lives that day, but he saved more than that. He saved the idea that honor still exists, that decency still matters, that we can be better than our worst moments. They became minor celebrities in veteran circles, the German and the American, the fighter pilot and the bomber pilot, the enemy who became a savior. But to them, they were just two old men who understood each other better than anyone else could. They'd shared something most people would never experience, a moment where death and life balanced on a single decision, where one man's choice defined 2 lives forever. Do you believe in fate? Charlie asked once. Franz considered. I used to say no, but now, I think perhaps we were meant to meet twice. Once in war, once in peace. The first meeting gave you life. The second meeting gave me forgiveness. Forgiveness? Charlie was puzzled. For what? For being German. For fighting for the wrong side. For all the guilt I've carried. Franz, Charlie said seriously, you fought for your country. You didn't choose the Nazi Party. You didn't commit war crimes. You were a soldier doing his duty. And when duty conflicted with decency, you chose decency. You have nothing to be forgiven for, Franz smiled. Thank you, my brother. Brother. They'd started using that word. It fit better than friend, better than comrade. They were brothers, bound not by blood, but by something stronger, a shared moment of grace in a graceless war. We should write a book, Charlie said one day. Tell our story properly. Franz's eyes lit up. Yes, so people remember, so they know that even in war, humanity survives. They began working on their memoir. 2 old pilots, 2 old typewriters, 2 perspectives on one miraculous day. The book would be called A Higher Call. The years passed quickly, too quickly. Charlie and Franz squeezed every moment they could from their unexpected friendship. Visits, phone calls, letters. They made up for 47 years of silence with constant connection. In 2008, they were interviewed together for a major documentary. The interviewer asked Franz, "Do you consider yourself a hero?" Franz shook his head firmly. "No, I did what any man of honor should do. There is no heroism in that. Just basic human decency." Charlie interrupted. "He's wrong. He's a hero. He risked everything to save strangers, enemy strangers. That's the definition of heroism." "We disagree on this," Franz said with a smile. "We disagree on many things, but we agree on what matters most, that we are brothers." The interviewer turned to Charlie. "What would you say to Franz if this was the last time you could speak to him?" Charlie's face grew serious. He looked at Franz. "I would say thank you for my life, for my family, for everything. And I would say, I love you, brother. You made me believe in goodness again." Franz reached over, gripped Charlie's shoulder. "And you made me believe I was not a coward, that my choice meant something. Thank you, Charlie." They were both crying. So was the interviewer. The documentary aired in 2010. It reached millions. Charlie and Franz's story spread across the world. Messages poured in from veterans, from students, from people who needed to believe that humanity could triumph over hatred. But time was running out. Franz was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. His hands shook, his movements slowed, but his mind remained sharp, his spirit unbroken. Charlie visited more frequently. Sometimes they didn't talk much, just sat together. Two old warriors approaching the end of their final mission. "Do you have any regrets?" Charlie asked during one visit. Franz thought for a long time. "Only one, that we lost 47 years. Imagine the friendship we could have had if we'd found each other sooner." "We have now," Charlie said. "That's what matters." "Yes," Franz agreed, "and I am grateful for every moment." In March 2008, Franz's condition worsened. Charlie visited him in the hospital. Franz was weak, fading, but he smiled when Charlie entered. "My friend," Franz whispered. "My brother." "I'm here," Charlie said, taking his hand. "I'm not leaving." They sat in silence. The machines beeped steadily. Outside, Vancouver rain tapped against the window. "Charlie," Franz said finally, "promise me something. Anything. Tell our story. Keep telling it, so people remember, so they know that even in the worst of times we can choose to be human." "I promise," Charlie said. "I'll tell it until my last breath." Franz smiled. "Good. That is good." He paused. "Charlie, I am not afraid. I am ready. But I want you to know, you gave my life meaning. That day in 1943, I made a choice, but I never knew if it mattered. You showed me it did. Thank you for that gift." Charlie couldn't speak. Tears streamed down his face. Franz squeezed his hand weakly. "Do not cry, my brother. We had our time. We found each other. That is miracle enough." Franz Stiegler died on March 22, 2008, at age 92. Charlie was with him, holding his hand, saying goodbye to the man who'd saved his life 65 years earlier. At the funeral, Charlie gave the eulogy. He spoke of honor, of mercy, of a moment in 1943 when one man chose humanity over hatred. "Franz Stiegler was the best man I ever knew," Charlie said, "and I am honored to have called him brother." Charlie Brown continued telling their story. He spoke at schools, at military academies, at veteran organizations. Wherever anyone would listen, Charlie told the story of Franz Stiegler, the German pilot who chose mercy. The book, A Higher Call, was published in 2012. It became an international bestseller. Millions read about that day over Germany, about two enemies who became brothers, about humanity surviving in the midst of war. Charlie kept a photograph on his desk, taken in 1990 at their first reunion. Charlie and Franz standing side by side, arms around each other's shoulders. Two old pilots, two old friends, brothers. People would ask Charlie, "Do you think Franz was a hero?" And Charlie would always answer the same way. "Franz didn't think so, but I do. He risked everything for 10 strangers. He chose honor over glory, decency over duty. That's heroism in its purest form." Charlie lived until November 24, 2008, just 8 months after Franz. He was 87 years old. His family said he'd been declining since Franz's death, like part of him had died with his brother. At Charlie's funeral, his son read a letter Charlie had written shortly before his death. "Franz Stiegler gave me a gift on December 20th, 1943. He gave me my life, but the greater gift came 47 years later, when we finally met. He gave me his friendship, his trust, his brotherhood. He showed me that humanity can survive anything, that enemies can become brothers, that mercy is stronger than hatred. I am grateful for every moment we shared. And I know that wherever we are now, we are together again. Two old pilots, two old friends, flying together at last." The letter ended with a simple line. "Thank you, Franz, for everything. Your brother, Charlie." Their story endures. It's taught in military academies as an example of honor in combat. It's shared in schools as a lesson about humanity. It's told at veteran gatherings as proof that even in war's darkest moments, goodness can survive. The last photograph of Charlie and Franz together was taken in 2007, a year before Franz's death. They're sitting in Charlie's backyard, laughing at some shared joke. Two old men with white hair and weathered faces, two warriors who'd found peace. People still write to their families, veterans. Students, people inspired by their story. The message is always the same. Thank you for showing us that mercy matters, that honor survives, that enemies can become brothers. December 20th is now remembered by aviation historians as the Day of Honor. The day a German fighter pilot chose humanity over hatred. The day Franz Stigler and Charlie Brown's lives became forever intertwined. Two men, two nations, two warriors separated by war, united by honor, bound by brotherhood. Their legacy isn't just about one moment of mercy. It's about what happened after, about 47 years of silence breaking into friendship, about enemies becoming brothers, about proving that the best of humanity can survive the worst of times. Franz and Charlie are gone now, but their story remains. A testament to honor, to mercy, to the power of one choice to change everything, and somewhere, perhaps, two old pilots are flying together again. Not as enemies, not even as friends, as brothers.